The buzz of his phone was what woke Leo. The harsh, electronic sound ripped through the silence of his small studio apartment. He fumbled for it, his hand slapping blindly at the nightstand, and knocked the phone to the floor. The screen lit up for a moment, then went dark, the ringing abruptly cut off. He sighed and dragged himself out of bed. His bare feet hit the cold laminate floor as he bent to pick it up. "Missed call. Chloe." He froze for a second, his eyes instinctively flicking to the time. 2:30 a.m. Why would she be calling him this late? He called back. It rang for a long time before someone picked up, but the voice that answered wasn't Chloe's. It was a man's. "Hello." The voice was raspy with sleep. "Who is this? It's the middle of the night." Leo's stomach dropped. "I'm looking for Chloe," he said, try to keep his voice steady. "Oh, her." The man chuckled, a dismissive, arrogant sound. "She's in the shower. Want me to have her call you back?" Leo's grip on the phone tightened, his knuckles turning white. "Who is this?" he asked. "Me?" The man paused. "I'm her boyfriend." In the background, Leo could faintly hear the sound of running water, and then a woman's laugh. It was muffled by the phone, but unmistakably clear. He closed his eyes and took a deep, shaky breath. "Put her on the phone," he said. "All right, hold on." The phone was set down, and Leo could hear the man call out. "Hey, babe, someone's on the phone for you. Guy named Thou." A short silence, then Chloe's voice tinged with annoyance. "Who? It's so late." "A guy named Leo," the man said, his voice laced with amusement. "Your ex." Another stretch of silence. A few seconds later, Chloe picked up. Her voice was suddenly sharp and cold. "Hello." "It's me." Leo's voice was hoarse. "Did you just call me?" "Oh, I must have but dialed you," Chloe said, her tone casual, dismissive. "My mistake." "Right." Leo nodded to himself. "So, is this a bad time?" "Yeah, kind of." She paused. "I'm out with friends." "Friends?" Leo let out a short, humorless laugh. "A male friend? What's it to you?" Her voice turned icy. "Leo, we broke up. You don't get to control who I see anymore." The word "broke up" landed like a bucket of ice water. They had broken up 3 months ago. The reason was simple. Chloe said she was tired. She said Leo was too broke, that he had no prospects, that she couldn't see a future with him. She said she wanted a man who could give her security, not a guy who had to time his rent payment with his paycheck. She said she was done squeezing into a tiny studio apartment, done walking 30 minutes to the grocery store just to save a few bucks on an Uber, done staring at a dress she loved in a department store only to quietly put it back on the rack. "It's not that I don't love you anymore," she'd said then, her eyes red. I can't live like this anymore." Leo hadn't cried or argued. He'd just been quiet for a long time, then nodded. "Okay," he'd said. "I guess this is it then." He thought he had accepted it. But now, at 2:30 in the morning, listening to another man casually say, "I'm her boyfriend," he realized that acceptance was just him burying the pain a little deeper. "Chloe," Leo's voice was quiet. "How long have you been with him?" "Why are you asking?" she snapped. "What does it matter to you?" "I just want to know," he paused. "Was it before we broke up, or after?" The silence on the other end of the line was all the answer he needed. Leo's throat felt tight, and it was suddenly hard to breathe. "I get it." He managed a laugh, but it was hollow and bitter. "Be happy." He hung up before she could reply. The dark screen of his phone reflected his own pale face. He stood there, motionless, until the crushing weight on his chest finally eased, allowing him to exhale. "So, I was cheated on," he whispered into the empty room. The apartment was terrifyingly quiet. The only sound was the distant whoosh of a car on the street below, a reminder that the city was still alive. A flood of memories hit him. He remembered bringing Chloe to his apartment for the first time. She'd stood in the cramped space, wrinkling her nose and saying, "It's so small," but then she had meticulously helped him organize his things. He remembered working late, and her showing up outside his office building with 2 slices of pizza, still warm in the box. He remembered on his birthday, she'd surprised him with an expensive watch, and then spent the next few months eating instant ramen to make up for it. And he remembered her more recent complaints. How a coworker got a new designer bag. How her best friend went on vacation to Maui. How someone else's boyfriend had just bought her a car. He remembered the way she looked at him, how the admiration in her eyes had slowly soured into disappointment, and then, finally, into disdain. So I was cheated on for a while, he repeated as if saying it to himself, a final farewell to their relationship. He walked to the window and pulled back the curtains. The city lights of Seattle bled through the glass, casting a long, lonely shadow behind him. A strange thought occurred to him, and it was almost funny. He'd always thought their problem was that he was poor. He realized now the problem was never the money. It was that her heart had already left. 2. Leo went to work the next day, just like any other. He was a developer at a tech company in South Lake Union. The pay wasn't great, but it wasn't bad either, just enough to survive in the city. He walked into the open plan office. His colleagues were already at their desks. Some were typing furiously, some were in a meeting room, and others were discreetly scrolling through their phones. Everything was exactly as it had always been, only he knew that he wasn't the same person he was yesterday. "Morning, Leo," said Ben, the new intern. "Did you figure out that bug from yesterday?" "Yeah, all set." Leo forced a smile. "I pushed the fix to the repository. You can check it out." "Awesome, thanks." He sat down at his station and booted up his computer. As the screen flickered to life, his eyes instinctively went to the desktop. The wallpaper was still a picture of Chloe. It was taken last winter. She was wearing his jacket, standing in the snow at Snoqualmie Pass, smiling so wide her eyes were squeezed into joyful slits. He stared at the photo for a few seconds, then right-clicked. Delete. The wallpaper reverted to the default blue mountain range of the operating system. A part of his heart felt just as empty and blue. He spent the entire day mechanically writing code. At noon, his manager announced a team lunch to celebrate the successful launch of their latest project. Everyone clamored to go to a popular brew pub downtown. Leo didn't want to go, but his coworkers dragged him along. The brew pub was loud, filled with the murmur of conversations and the clinking of glasses. "Leo, you okay?" Ben asked quietly, sliding into the seat next to him. "You seem off today." "I'm fine," Leo said, picking at a basket of fries. "Just didn't sleep well." "Girl trouble?" Ben leaned inconspiratorially. "I thought you had a girlfriend. I saw her drop off an umbrella for you once." "That was then," Leo said flatly. "Not anymore." "Oh." Ben looked stunned. "When did that happen?" 3 months ago." "Then why are you?" Ben trailed off, catching himself. "So are you still into her?" Leo thought for a moment, then shook his head. "I don't know." "You don't know?" "I used to think I'd love her forever," he said with a wry smile. "It wasn't until last night that I realized love has an expiration date." "What happened last night?" "Nothing," Leo said, taking a long sip of his IPA. "I just realized she was already a stranger." He didn't mention the 2:30 a.m. phone call or the man's voice. Some things, when said out loud, only make you sound more pathetic. After lunch, someone suggested karaoke. Leo tried to back out, but his manager clapped him on the shoulder and said, "Come on, live a little," and pushed him into an Uber with the others. The private room at the karaoke bar was dark, the music deafening. Someone was screaming a power ballad. A few people were playing drinking games, and another was hiding in a corner, whispering into their phone. Leo found a spot on the edge of the sofa and nursed his beer. "Leo, your turn." Ben shoved a microphone into his hand. "How about a little I Will Survive?" "Get out of here," Leo grumbled, but he was smiling. "You trying to get punched?" Okay. How about somebody that I used to know?" Leo took the microphone and selected the song. It was old, but a classic. As the minimalist beat started, he held the mic, his voice a little rough, but surprisingly on key. "Now, and then I think of when we were together, like when you said you felt so happy you could die." As he hit the chorus, the room quieted down. A few people started humming along. Someone else was recording on their phone. Leo sang with his eyes fixed on the lyrics, scrolling across the screen, but his mind was filled with images of Chloe. When the last note faded, he put down the microphone and took a deep breath. "That's all from me. Dude, you could be on The Voice." "Seriously, man, where are you hiding that?" His colleagues were cheering, but he just smiled and shook his head. He knew he wasn't singing for them. He was singing for the person he used to be. And with that song, he was ready to let go. 3. The days turned into weeks. Leo's life slowly found its rhythm again. He stopped intentionally thinking about Chloe, stopped checking her Instagram. If he saw someone on the street with a familiar silhouette, he'd pause for a second before quickly looking away. He started pouring his energy into his work. The new project was a success, and his manager praised him in several meetings. Leo has really stepped up lately, his department head said. That core module you built was innovative. Good work. Thanks, I appreciate that, Leo said. There's an internal opening for a team lead next week, his manager said later, his voice low. I'm going to recommend you for it. Me? Leo was taken aback. You think I can do it? If not you, then who? His manager said. Don't sell yourself short. You have the technical skills, and you're reliable. You're just a little too quiet sometimes. This would be good for you. You've got a bright future. Okay, Leo nodded. I'll give a shot. That evening, for the first time in a long while, he stayed late at the office, updating his resume and preparing his presentation for the interview. It was after 10 when he finally finished. As he was packing up, his phone buzzed. A text message. Chloe, you up? Leo stared at the words, a strange sense of calm washing over him. It wasn't a spark of hope, nor was it anger. It was just quiet. He thought for a moment before typing back a single word. Leo, yeah. Her reply was almost instant. Chloe, how have you been? Leo, okay. Working. Same old. Chloe, oh. A moment later, another message. Chloe, heard your new project at work is doing really well. Leo, how'd you know? Chloe, saw it on Instagram. Leo paused. He remembered posting a story a few days ago, a picture of his monitor late at night. Chloe, that's pretty impressive. Leo, it's fine. Chloe, did you get a promotion? Leo, not yet. But I'm up for one next week. Chloe, oh. Well, good luck. I hope you get it. Leo, thanks. The conversation stalled. A thread suddenly snapped. After a long pause, a new message appeared. Chloe, Leo, do you hate me? He stared at the question for a long time. Hate her? Right after the breakup, yes. He had. He hated how materialistic she was, how cold she'd been, how she never even offered a simple I'm sorry. But over time, he'd come to understand. She was just making a choice for herself. She wanted a better life. She wanted money, a house, a car, the envious glances of others. There was nothing inherently wrong with wanting those things. What was wrong was that she'd used them as an excuse to leave, failing to realize that the real reason they had fallen apart was that her heart had changed long before. Leo, no, he typed. You made your choice. She didn't reply for a long time. Chloe, do you still like me? Leo smiled sadly to himself. Leo, I used to, he wrote, but not anymore. Message sent. He put his phone down, shut down his computer, turned off the lights, and walked out of the office. The hallway was empty, lit only by the faint green glow of the emergency exit signs. He suddenly felt like he had truly, finally, walked out of that relationship. 4. On the day of his interview, Leo wore a simple white button-down shirt and dark slacks. He'd even styled his hair. Standing at the front of the conference room, facing a row of senior managers, he felt surprisingly calm. Good morning, everyone. My name is Leo Evans from the engineering department. His voice was clear and steady. Today, I'm applying for the position of lead developer for the Atlas team. He talked them through his project history, his technical expertise, his ideas for team collaboration, and his vision for the future. He was logical, articulate, and confident. He could see people nodding, jotting down notes. When he finished, his manager gave him a small, approving smile. Good job, he murmured. Better than I expected. The results were announced a week later. Leo got the promotion. It came with a significant raise in his own small office. More of a glass-walled cubicle, really, but it was his. It was a new beginning. He started mentoring junior developers, participating in higher-level project decisions, and building a reputation within the company. Sometimes, people from other departments would greet him in the elevator. Morning, Leo. Big week. He would smile and nod, knowing deep down that these changes weren't because Chloe had left him. They were because he had finally started investing all that time and energy back into himself. If Chloe had once been the center of his universe, he had now finally learned to be his own sun. 5-time flew. Half a year went by. Leo's life had settled into a comfortable new groove. He moved into a slightly larger one-bedroom apartment. Still a rental, but it had a real living room and a small balcony. He started working out, going for runs at Gasworks Park on the weekends. His Instagram feed, once a wasteland of working late, broke, and over it, slowly transformed into a collection of new feature launched, crushed to 5K, and homemade dinner tonight. He still thought about Chloe occasionally, but it was no longer a gut-wrenching pain. It was more like flipping through a book he'd already finished, a flicker of nostalgia, but no desire to read it all over again. Until one day at the mall, he saw her. It was a Saturday. He was helping a friend pick out a new phone. The mall was crowded, a chaotic symphony of music, announcements, and chatter. He was looking down at his phone when his friend nudged him. "Hey, check out that girl over there. She's really pretty." Leo followed his gaze and stopped dead. Standing outside a coffee shop was a woman in a beige trench coat, holding a latte. It was Chloe. She was thinner, her hair was longer, and her makeup was more polished than he remembered. Beside her stood a man in a designer jacket, juggling several shopping bags while scrolling on his phone. Leo's steps faltered. "What's up?" his friend asked. "You know her?" "Yeah," Leo nodded. "My ex." "Oh." His friend let out a long, knowing "oh." "Well, you gonna go say hi?" "Nah." Leo shook his head. "No point." He was about to turn and walk away when Chloe, as if sensing his presence, looked up and her eyes met his. For a split second, time stood still. The cup in Chloe's hand trembled, nearly spilling coffee on her coat. She clearly hadn't expected to see him here. "Leo," she stammered. He stopped and gave a slight nod. "Hey, long time no see. You're shopping here too?" Her voice was strained. Helping a friend, he gestured to the guy beside him. I'm with a friend," she said, glancing at the man next to her. The man finally looked up from his phone, his eyes appraising Leo. "And you are?" "My ex-boyfriend," Chloe said quietly. "Oh." The man nodded, extending a hand. "Mark Johnson. I'm her boyfriend." Leo shook his hand. "Leo Evans." An awkward silence descended. "So, how have you been?" Chloe finally asked, breaking the tension. "Can't complain," Leo said with a slight smile. "Work's been busy." "I heard you got promoted," she said. "You have a good grapevine." "I saw it on Instagram," she mumbled, looking down. "Congratulations." "Thanks. Are you seeing anyone?" she asked. "Nope," Leo said. "Just focusing on myself. It's been good." Mark looked from Chloe to Leo, a smirk playing on his lips. "I'm just going to go check out that store over there. You two catch up." He conveniently walked a short distance away, pretending to look in a shop window while keeping an eye on them. "What about you?" Leo asked Chloe. "How long have you two been together?" "Almost a year," she replied. "Oh," Leo nodded. "That's nice." "Are you mad at me?" she blurted out. "Mad about what?" "For leaving you." "No," Leo said honestly. "It was your choice." "But she bit her lip. "I think I regret it now." Leo blinked. "Regret it?" "Yeah." She looked up, her eyes glistening. "I thought having money would make me happy, but I found out I was wrong." She began to tell him about her past year. She met Mark at a party. He was wealthy, generous, and bought her a designer bag on their first date. She fell for it hard. He took her to fancy restaurants, on international trips, to exclusive events. She thought she was living the dream. But over time, she realized she wasn't the only woman in his life. His phone was filled with flirtatious messages from other women, which he dismissed as just business contacts. He'd tell her he was busy with work when she was sick, only for her to see him tagged in photos at a bar later that night. He posted pictures of them together on social media, but he never introduced her to his parents. "He told me he wasn't ready for marriage yet," Chloe said, her laugh laced with bitterness. "Then I found out it was because he was already married." Leo stared at her, stunned. "What did you just say?" "He has a wife." Chloe's voice was barely a whisper. "And a 3-year-old daughter. And you?" "I didn't know at first," she shook her head. "He told me he was single. Then one day, his wife showed up at his office and made a huge scene. That's how I found out. I became the office joke overnight." Her voice trembled. "My coworkers whispered behind my back, calling me a gold digger, a homewrecker. I thought I was choosing an easier path. Turns out, I just jumped from one hole into a much deeper one." She looked up at him. "You know what? The thing I miss the most is our time in that tiny studio apartment. We were poor, but I felt safe. I knew that no matter how late I came home, you'd leave a light on for me. I knew you'd give me the last bite of food, that you'd stick the only hand warmer in my pocket on a cold day. I took all of that for granted. It wasn't until I lost it that I realized those things are so much more important than money." Her voice grew quieter. "Leo, I'm so sorry." Leo was silent for a long time. He wasn't without his own late-night fantasies of this exact moment, of Chloe coming back, crying, begging him for forgiveness. But now that it was actually happening, he didn't feel the vindication he'd expected. He just felt a profound sadness. For her, and for the man he used to be. "Are you still with him?" he asked. "It's not completely over," she shook her head. "He won't let me go. He threatened me. Said if I leave him, he'll make sure I can't find another job in this city." "You should call the police," Leo said. "That's blackmail." "I can't," she said with a bitter smile. "I am scared. If my parents found out, they'd be devastated." "So, telling me all this, what are you hoping for?" "I wanted to ask you." She looked up, a desperate hope flickering in her eyes. "If, and this is a big if I came back right now, would you still want me?" The question landed like a stone in the placid lake of his heart. The sounds of the mall, the music, the crowds, the laughter from the coffee shop, all faded into a dull roar. All he could see were her eyes, the same eyes that had once captivated him, now filled with exhaustion and unshed tears. He knew, with absolute certainty, that if he said yes, she would break it off with Mark and come back to him. They could start over. He could keep working hard, make more money, buy a house, a car, and give her the life she thought she wanted. He could, one day, turn to someone and say, "See, I finally gave her everything she ever wanted." But he also knew something else. Some cracks can never be mended. Some trust, once broken, can never be rebuilt. He had loved her with everything he had, made her his entire world. And she had chosen to leave him when he needed her support the most. Not because she didn't love him, but because she didn't love him enough. "Chloe," he finally said, his voice soft but firm, "do you know what I did after you left? I spent every single day wondering what I did wrong. I thought if I had just worked harder, made a little more money, maybe you wouldn't have left. But eventually I realized the problem wasn't me. You were the one who let go first." He paused, taking a breath. "You regret it now because you found out that your better option wasn't what you thought it would be. But that doesn't mean you truly want to go back to how things were. You're just comparing your options and realizing I wasn't so bad after all. But a relationship isn't like grocery shopping. You can't just return something you don't like and pick up what you had before. Some things, once you miss them, are gone for good." Tears started streaming down Chloe's face. "So you're not," she choked out. "You're not even going to give me a chance?" "It's not about me not giving you one." Leo shook his head. "It's that I don't need one anymore." "I used to need you," he said with a sad smile. "I needed you there with me on the crowded bus, when we ate cheap takeout, when we walked home to save money on an Uber. Back then, as long as I had you, I felt like I could handle anything. But you left, and I had to get through the hardest time of my life alone. I learned how to cook for one, how to go to the movies alone, how to move apartments by myself, how to sit in an urgent care waiting room alone. I learned how to focus all my energy on myself. I'm not the same Leo who made you the center of his universe. I have new goals now, a new life. I'm grateful for the time we had, for the path we walked together. And I'm grateful that you taught me that I can't build my entire world around another person." But he looked her straight in the eye and said, with no trace of malice, "I don't love you anymore. So no, I can't take you back." Chloe began to sob. "Are you just trying to get back at me?" she asked. "Is this revenge for how I treated you?" "No," Leo said. "I don't have time for that. I'm just being honest about how I feel. I don't feel that spark for you anymore. I won't take you back just because you're crying. And I won't pretend I still love you just because you have regrets. That wouldn't be fair to you. And it wouldn't be fair to me." He let out a quiet sigh. "Chloe, you need to move forward. Not by coming back to me, but by finding someone who is actually right for you. Someone who won't lie to you. Someone who will drop everything to be with you when you're sick. Someone who will proudly take you home to meet his parents. That person isn't me, and it's definitely not him." 6. They never spoke again after that day. Occasionally, Leo would see an update from Chloe on Instagram. She posted a picture of an employee ID card cut in half, with the caption, "New beginnings." A while later, a photo from inside a moving truck. "Leaving this city. Time to go somewhere nobody knows my name." And then, her profile went dark. Maybe she deleted it, or maybe she just blocked him. Leo didn't try to find out. He knew their story had reached its final page. He wished her well, but he was no longer a character in her life. 70 years later, Leo's company was thriving, and he had been promoted from team lead to engineering manager. He bought a modest, reliable sedan. He put a down payment on a small townhouse in a suburb, just outside the city. The mortgage was steep, but for the first time, he felt like he had a home that was truly his. His life became a steady, fulfilling routine. Work, the gym, reading, and hanging out with friends on the weekend. He met a few nice women. Some had asked him out, friends had tried to set him up. He didn't rush into a new relationship, but he wasn't closed off to the idea. He just knew that love wasn't something you could force. When it was time, it would happen. One evening, he was driving home after working late. Traffic was heavy, so he turned on the radio. The song that came on was Gaudier's Somebody That I Used to Know. He listened to the familiar melody, a sense of calm washing over him. At a red light, he glanced in his rearview mirror. In the white car, behind him sat a young couple. The man was driving, and the woman was leaning against the passenger seat, yawning. He reached over and gently squeezed her hand. She smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. The scene was a snapshot of him and Chloe, years ago. Leo watched them, and a genuine smile spread across his face. Not a smirk, not a bitter grimace, but a smile of pure release. He once believed that losing Chloe was the greatest tragedy of his life. He understood now that it was just a turning point. Without that painful chapter, he might never have pushed himself to grow, to become independent, to build the life he had now. Chloe, he thought to himself, thank you for being a part of my story. And thank you for teaching me how to walk the rest of the way on my own. The light turned green. He pressed the accelerator. The car moved forward into the sea of city lights. Ahead of him was the rest of his life, a road not yet traveled, people not yet met. And the past was finally, mercifully, left far behind. By the time he looked back, I was already gone. Not because I wouldn't wait, but because I finally learned to move forward.